This is the Tale of Piggling Bland, a little book by Beatix Potter that we started reading, and this is part 2. So at the beginning of the story, we met Piggling Bland and his mother and his brothers and sisters. Mrs. Pig had 4 boys and 4 girl pigs, piglets. Yes, they like rooting around in the garden. Carrots, don't they? And there she is. She has many pigs to feed. But now he's grown up, and the 2 big boys are getting dressed up and going off to town. So he says his goodbyes, and Mother gives them both a packed lunch, and they're able to have a picnic along the way. This pig went to market, this pig went to this little pig, and this little pig. Anyway, they came across a policeman, and when they were asked for their papers, Alexander had gotten his papers mixed up with the wrappers from the peppermints, and they didn't know where his papers were, so the policeman had to take him home, and poor old Piggling Bland was left all alone. Look, there he is. He wasn't quite sure where he was going now, when he took a wrong turn, several wrong turns, and was quite lost. It grew dark and the wind whistled, the trees creaked and groaned. Piggling Bland became frightened and cried, "Wee, wee, wee, I can't find my way home." After an hour's wandering, he got out of the wood. The moon shone through the clouds, and Piggling Bland saw a country that was new to him. The road crossed a moor. Below was a wide valley with a river twinkling in the moonlight, and beyond, in the misty distance, lay the hills. He saw a wooden hut, made his way to it, and crept inside. "I'm afraid it is a hen house, but what can I do?" said Piggling Bland, wet and cold and quite tired out. "Bacon and eggs," clucked a hen on a perch. "Trap, trap, trap, crackle, crackle, crackle," scolded the disturbed cockle. Oh, it sounds more like a turkey, doesn't it? Yes, that's more like a chook. To market, jelly, jiggity, to markety, jiggity, jig," clucked a broody white hen roosting next to him. Piggling Bland, much alarmed, determined to leave at daybreak. In the meantime, he and the hens fell asleep. In less than an hour they were all awakened. The owner, Mr. Thomas Piperson, came with a lantern and a hamper to catch 6 fowls to take to market in the morning. There they all are. Look very cosy in there, don't they? He grabbed the white hen roosting next to the cock. Then his eye fell upon Piggling Bland, squeezed up into the corner. There he is, look. He made a singular remark. "Hello, here's another," seized Piggling Bland by the scruff of the neck and dropped him into the hamper. Then he dropped in 5 more dirty, kicking, cackling hens upon the top of Piggling Bland. The hamper, containing 6 fowls and a young pig, was no light weight. It was taken downhill unsteadily with jerks. Piggling, although nearly scratched to pieces, contrived to hide the papers and peppermints inside his clothes. Oh, he still had some of the peppermints left. Oh, that was lucky. You don't have food, at least if you have a few sweeties. They'll see you through, won't they? At last the hamper was bumped down upon a kitchen floor. The lid was open and Piggling was lifted out. He looked up, blinking, and saw an offensively ugly elderly man grinning from ear to ear. Not just chooks, is he? He's found a nice big plump pig. This one's come of himself. Whatever, said Mr. Piperson, turning Piggling Bland's pockets inside out. He pushed the hamper into a corner, threw a sack over it to keep the hens quiet, put a pot on the fire, and unlaced his boots. Piggling Bland drew forward a copy stool and sat on the edge of it, shyly warming his hands. Mr. Piperson pulled off a boot and threw it against the wainscot at the further end of the kitchen. There was a smothered noise. "Shut up!" said Mr. Piperson. Piggling Bland warmed his hands and eyed him. Mr. Piperson pulled off the other boot and flung it after the first. There was again a curious noise. "Be quiet, will ye?" said Mr. Piperson. Piggling Bland sat on the very edge of the copy stool. Mr. Piperson fetched meal from a chest and made porridge. It seemed to Piggling that something at the further end of the kitchen was taking a suppressed interest in the cooking, but he was too hungry or troubled by the noises. He was too hungry to be troubled by the noises. Well, you would be, wouldn't you? Especially when you can smell that porridge cooking. Eh? He's left his home long ago, and his mother's food that was given him has been eaten. All he has is a few peppermints left. Anyway, Mr. Piperson poured out 3 platefuls for himself, for Piggling, and a third. After glaring at Piggling, he put away with much scuffling and locked up. Piggling Bland ate his supper discreetly. After supper, Mr. Piperson consulted an almanac and felt Pigling's ribs. It was too late in the season for curing bacon, and he grudged his meal. Beside, the hens had seen his pig. He'd seen this pig. He looked at the small remains of a flitch and then looked uneasily at Piggling. "You may sleep on the rug," said Mr. Peter Thomas Piperson. Well, Beatix Potter wrote these stories nearly 100 years ago now. And so there's a lot of old English words that we don't really use these days much. I mean, scuffling, yes. But what's an almanac? I think it's got something to do with the days of the year and like spring, autumn, winter and thing, and when it's a good time to fatten a pig and what happens next. But flitch, what's a flitch? He looked at the small remains of a flitch and then looked undecidedly at Piggling. So he's got to decide something now. But he said he could sleep on the rug, so be it. Piggling Bland slept like a top. In the morning, Mr. Piperson made more porridge. The weather was warmer. He looked to see how much meal was left in the chest and seemed dissatisfied. "You're likely to be moving on again," said he to Piggling Bland. Before Piggling could reply, a neighbour who was giving Mr. Piperson and the hens a lift whistled from the gate. Oh, I'm not a very good whistler, am I? Mr. Piper. I usually go coo. That's what we do in Australia. Mr. Piper's son hurried out with the hamper, enjoining Piglet to shut the door behind him and not meddle with naught. "Or I'll come back and skin ye," said Mr. Piperson. See that old English? "Skin ye, I'll skin ye." It crossed Piggling Bland's mind that if he had asked for a lift too, he might still have been in time for the market. But he distrusted Peter Thomas. After finishing, there's another nice painted picture all in colour. I do like the colour pictures, don't you? After finishing breakfast at his leisure, Piggling had a look around the cottage. Everything was locked up. He found some potato peelings in a bucket in the back kitchen. Piggling ate the peel and washed up the porridge plates in the bucket. Oh, what a good boy. He sang while he worked. Tom with his pipe made such a noise, he called up all the girls and boys, and they all ran to hear him play, over the hills and far away. Oh, I remember that old song my mother used to sing to me. Mother duck called with a quack, 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 All right, suddenly a little smothered voice chimed in. Over the hills and far away, the wind shall blow my top knot off. Piggling Bland put down a plate, which he was wiping, and listened. After a long pause, Piggling went on tiptoe and peeped around the door into the front kitchen. There was nobody there. After another pause, Piggling approached the door of the locked cupboard and snuffed at the keyhole. He's trying to smell. Maybe he knows what's in there by what it smells like. He snuffed at the keyhole. It was quite quiet. After another long pause, Piggling pushed a peppermint under the door. It was sucked in immediately. In the course of the day, Piggling pushed in all the remaining 6 peppermints. Oh, that was generous of him, wasn't it? When Mr. Piperson returned, he found Piggling sitting before the fire. He had brushed up the hearth and put on the pot to boil. The meal was not get at table. Mr. Piperson was very affable. He slapped Piggling on the back and made lots of porridge and forgot to lock the meal chest. So Mr. Piperson had gone to market and returned, but he took the chooks, those chickens, but didn't take Piggling Bland because I think he's fattening him up, don't you? Mr. Piperson was very affable. He slapped Piggling on the back, made lots of porridge and forgot to lock the meal chest. He did lock the cupboard door, but without properly shutting it. He went to bed early and told Piggling upon no account to disturb him next day before 12 o'clock. Well, at least he had shelter and food, so for the time being, he's not running away, is he? Piggling Bland sat by the fire eating his supper. All at once, at his elbow, a little pig voice. My name is Pigwig. Make me more porridge, please. Piggling Bland jumped and looked around. Oh, look. See, that door wasn't locked, was it? A perfectly lovely little black Berkshire pig stood smiling beside him. She had twinkly little screwed-up eyes, a double chin, and a short turned-up nose. She pointed at Pigling's plate. He hastily gave it to her and fled to the meal chest. How did you come here? Asked Piggling Bland. Stolen, replied Pigwig, with her mouth full. Piggling helped himself to meal without scruple. What for? Bacon, hams, replied Pigwig cheerfully. Cheerfully? Why on earth don't you run away? Exclaimed the horrified Piggling. Well, that's what I was thinking. Why doesn't he? Pigs do like to be fed, though, don't they? I shall after supper, said Pigwig decidedly. Piggling Bland made more porridge and watched her shyly. She finished a second plate, got up and looked about her as though she were going to start. You can't go in the dark, said Piggling Bland. Pigwig looked anxious. Do you know your way by daylight? I know we can see this little white house from the hills across the river. Which way are you going, Mr. Pig? To market. I have 2 pig papers. I might take you to the bridge, if you have no objection, said Piggling, much confused and sitting on the edge of his copy stool. Pigwig's gratitude was such, and she asked so many questions, that it became embarrassing to Piggling Bland. That's right. After Alexander had gone off with the policeman, he found that he had Alexander's papers as well as his own. So he was obliged to shut his eyes and pretend to sleep. She became quiet, and there was a smell of peppermint. I thought you'd eaten them, said Piggling, waking suddenly. Only the corners, replied Pigwig, studying the sentiments with much interest in the firelight. Sentiments. I wish you wouldn't. He might smell them through the ceiling, said alarmed Piggling. Pigwig put back the sticky peppermints into her pocket. Sing something, she demanded. I am sorry, I have toothache, said Piggling, much dismayed. "Then I will sing," replied Pigwig. "You will not mind if I say iddy, tiddity, tiddity. I have forgotten some of the words." Piggling Bland made no objection. He sat with his eyes half shut and watched her. She wagged her head and rocked about, clapping time and singing in a sweet, grunty voice. "Oh, funny, old Mother Pig lived in a sty, and 3 little piggies she had. Tee-itty, itty, ump, ump, ump." And the little pigs said, "Wee, wee." She sang successfully through 3 or 4 verses. Only at every verse her head nodded a little lower, and her little twinkly eyes closed up. "Those 3 little piggies grew beaky and lean they might very well be, for somehow they couldn't say umph, 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 and they wouldn't say wee, 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 for somehow they couldn't say." Pigwig's head bobbed lower and lower until she rolled over a little round ball fast asleep on the hearth rug. Piggling Bland on tiptoe covered her up with an antimacassar. "Oh, antimacassar! That's a little crocheted rug, knitted or crocheted rug, handmade. Yes, that's another old English word, isn't it?" He was afraid to go to sleep himself. For the rest of the night he sat listening to the chirping of the crickets and to the snores of Mr. Piperson overhead. Well, they're safe while Piperson is asleep, aren't they? Early in the morning, between dark and daylight, Pigling tied up a little bundle and woke up Pigwig. She was excited and half frightened. "But it's dark. How can we find our way?" "The cock has crowed. We must start before the hens come out. They might shout to Mr. Piperson." He knew, didn't he, that it was soon to be light. As soon as you hear that cock crow, and some birds chirp early and they give you warning that daylight is coming. Pigwig sat down again and commenced to cry. "Come away, Pigwig, we can see when we get used to it. Come, I can hear them clucking." Pigling had never said shh to a hen in his life. Being peaceable, also, he remembered the hamper. There it is. It's just dawn. It's just starting to get light, isn't it? He opened the house door quietly and shut it after them. There was no garden. The neighbourhood of Mr. Piperson was all scratched up by fowls. They slipped away hand in hand across an untidy field to the road. The sun rose while they were crossing the moor, a dazzle of light over the hill tops. A dazzle of light over the tops of the hills. The sunshine crept down the slopes into a peaceful green valley where little white cottages nestled in gardens and orchards. Oh, that must be the market town. They're not far away, are they? "Oh, that's Westmoreland," said Pigwig. She dropped Pigling's hand and commenced to dance, singing, "Tom, Tom, the piper's son, stole a pig and away he ran, but all the tune that he could play was over the hills and far away. Come, Pigwig, we must get to the bridge before folks are crossing." "Why do you want to go to market, Pigling?" inquired Pigwig presently. I want to grow potatoes." "Have a peppermint," said Pigwig. Piggling Bland refused quite crossly. "Does your poor toothy hurt?" inquired Pigwig. Piggling grunted. Pigwig ate the peppermint herself and followed the opposite side of the road. Pigwig Keep under the wall. There's a man ploughing. Pigwig crossed over. They hurried down the hill towards the country boundary. Suddenly, Pigling stopped. He heard wheels. They didn't have cars in those days. Look, horse and cart. That was the way to travel. Slowly, jogging up the road below them, came a tradesman's cart. The reins flapped on the horse's back. The grocer was reading the paper. Look, well, you couldn't do that if you're driving a car, could you? But the good old horse who's pulling the cart, he's got eyes to see, and he's going to stay on the track. Just a dirt track, no bitumen road in those days, and everyone travelled quite slowly. Take that peppermint out of your mouth, Pigwig. We may have to run. Don't say one word. Leave it to me. And in sight of the bridge, said poor Pigling, nearly crying, he began to walk frightfully lame, holding Pigwig's arm. He's got his stick there. Why is he lame? The grocer, intent upon his newspaper, might have passed them if his horse had not shied and snorted. He pulled... Anyway, I can't snort like a horse. They're a bit different than pigs, aren't they? He pulled the cart crossways and held down his whip. Hello, where are you going to? Piggling Bland stared at him vacantly. Like, what's it got to do with you? Oh, there he is. See? Are you deaf? Are you going to market? Pigling nodded slowly. I thought as much. It was yesterday. Show me your licence. Pigling Bland stared at the off hind shoe of the grocer's horse, which had picked up a stone. Oh dear. The grocer flicked his whip. Papers? Pig licence? Come on. Pigling fumbled in all his pockets and handed up the papers. The grocer read them, but still seemed dissatisfied. This here pig is a young lady. Is her name Alexander? Pigwig opened her mouth and shut it again. Pigling coughed asthmatically. The grocer ran his finger down the advertisement column of his newspaper. Lost, stolen, or strayed. Reward. He looked suspiciously at Pigwig. Then he stood up in the trap and whistled for the ploughman. Here's Pigling handing the papers. You wait here while I drive on to speak to him, said the grocer, gathering up the reins. He knew that pigs are slippery, but surely such a very lame pig could never run. Maybe he was just pretending to be lame, do you think? Well, he's a clever pig, isn't he? Not yet. Pigwig? He will look back. The grocer did so. He saw the two pigs stock still in the middle of the road. Then he looked over at his horse's heels. It was lame also. The stone took some time to knock out after he got to the ploughman. Now, Pigwig, now, said Piggling Bland. Never did any pigs run as fast as these pigs ran. They raced and squealed and pelted down the long white hill towards the bridge. Little fat Pigwig's petticoats fluttered and her feet went pitter, pitter, pitter as she bounded and jumped. They ran and they ran, and they ran down the hill and across a short cut on level green turf at the bottom, between pebble beds and rushes. They came to the river, they came to the bridge, they crossed it, hand in hand. Yes, there they are. Look, an old stone bridge over the river. Then, over the hills and far away, she danced with Piggling Bland. Oh, they made their way back to where it was all safe. No problem, is it? Them and the little rabbits. And there's the sun. It's daytime now. Oh, that's the end of the story. Oh my goodness. So we've heard about Jemima Puddle Duck and Jeremy Fisher and Mrs. Tiggywinkle, the two bad mice. I've read the story about Tom Kitten and Squirrel Nutkin and Mrs. Tittlemouse. There's still a few more to go. We haven't read about Peter Rabbit or Benjamin Bunny yet, but they were in this story, weren't they, at the beginning? And there's also the owl. Oh, I wonder what his name is. So, yes, there's lots more in the series. So, have a look on my channel, subscribe if you like, and press like if you like, and make a comment. Would be lovely. Thank you. Bye.